Hi there, welcome back to my studio space. I'm Laura Valenti. Today, I thought it would be fun to print this photograph from Japan. I think we'll do another landscape as well. And I want to experiment with a couple different papers and see what looks best with this. They're papers that are brand new to me. I haven't tried before. And I also just really wanted to share some thoughts and ideas for folks who are doing landscape photography and just share sort of like my creative philosophy for landscape photography, what I'm looking for, what attracts me, what moves me in the landscape, how I go about framing up some of my landscape photographs, what I'm not looking for, and yeah, just share those ideas with you as we make a couple prints. So this is the first test print I made, and you can see that it's pretty muddy overall, but this just gives me a sense of whether or not I'm in the right ballpark with my tones, and then I can adjust from there. First print is always kind of bad, you know, it's sort of like the first pancake. So this is the second print I made, and you can see that I added some nice sepia toning to it. And then I also just made the highlights a little brighter. I made the shadows a little darker, and I brightened up the midtones a little bit, retouched a few spots, and I'm liking it a lot better. So you can see just in two prints, we've already come kind of a long way with this, and I'm really happy with that. So I often make what I think of as intimate landscape photographs, rather than grand landscape photographs of like sweeping mountain vistas or really impressive things like that. I like quieter photographs, more intimate photographs, and photographs that feel maybe meditative in a way or experiential in a way. This one really does that for me because it feels like we're there in it, you know? Like you can feel the person in this photograph peering through the glass, looking out at those islands, and it feels sort of reflective or nostalgic or poetic in a way. Just the experience of being there and doing that, you know? Like, this doesn't feel like a photograph that's all about trying to knock you off your rocker and impress you or anything like that. It feels more to me like sort of like a warm knitted blanket just wrapped around my shoulders and a warm cup of tea in my hands, you know? This is just a comforting photograph. It's just a real human scale, quiet, peaceful, comforting photograph. And that's what I'm really looking for. Where I'm, you know, walking out of my hotel and I spot a window that's all drippy and has condensation all over it, and just how beautiful that landscape is outside. And I just make some quiet little images. And you know what? I photographed this on my iPhone, actually. I don't know why I didn't get out my big camera for this, but I just didn't. So it's just an iPhone photograph, but I think it works really, really well. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with taking iPhone photographs. I have exhibited them many times, sold them many times, and curated them into exhibitions when I've been choosing photographs as a juror curator. So they really are very capable cameras, and sometimes they actually are exactly what's needed. And so yeah, I can't make a huge print of this because it was shot on an iPhone, but I bet I could get it up to 12 by 12 and it would look really, really nice. So I'm going to try two different papers today. One is a Beretta, so a glossier look, and then the second one is a matte paper with a little bit of texture. I'd say a moderate amount of texture. This is the Hahnemühle sugarcane paper, which I haven't tried before. I've tried their hemp before. I've tried their bamboo paper before. I like those a lot, so this will be neat to experiment with. And then this is Hahnemühle's photo rag Beretta, which is pretty, it looks pretty close to my favorite paper, maybe a little bit smoother. My favorite one is Hahnemühle's Fine Art Beretta. So yeah, this is the photo rag Beretta, and we'll just see how the print looks and how the tones look on the two different papers, because they're both a little bit warm. They don't have a lot of optical brighteners in them, but yeah, we'll see what the blacks look like on the matte and what the highlights look like on the glossy, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we've got our 2 test prints, and I'm really immediately happy with both of them. I really like the way it looks on this photo rag Beretta. The texture is subtle but beautiful. I really like the contrast and the way the blacks really pop nicely. Overall, I think that's really pretty darn beautiful. I'm pleased with that. And then the sugarcane paper, it's a little more texture than I usually like, but I think it's got a beautiful warmth, and it does not, we don't lose the contrast on it, and the whites don't look muddy to me. They look still really nice and poppy. And overall, I think this is just a pretty gorgeous contrasty or warm tone matte paper, which is amazing. Here's where we started. And here's where we've come to. Now I'm gonna make a big print. All right, guys, here is our final print on a nice big piece of Beretta paper. I am super happy with it. I'm also really happy with the fact that this is an iPhone photograph, and it looks sharp and gorgeous at 12 by 12. So yeah, it just goes to show what you can do with an iPhone. It's pretty amazing how it holds up at this size. Really pleased. Okay, so we've got our big print and some of our test prints right here. And one thing that I just noticed is I made this big print on the Hahnemühle Fine Art Beretta, which is my favorite paper. And this is the test print, though, that we made on the Photo Rag Beretta, also Hahnemühle. And as you can see, it's quite a bit warmer than this one. So the surface texture of the paper is largely the same, but this paper stock is quite a bit warmer on the Photo Rag Beretta, and I am loving it. Yeah. It might actually become my new favorite paper. Wow. Yeah, I love that warmer tone. I think it just makes the sepia really look even richer, and the whites look beautiful. Kind of reminds me of, for darkroom printers, the Ilford fiber-based paper in the warm tone. Just a beautiful warm palette. Yum, I love that. It is so worthwhile to test prints on a few different papers. It really can change the whole look and feel of your images. It's really amazing how big of a difference that makes. So I'm looking at things like the color, the warmth of the paper, the coolness of the paper, the shine or the matte element, the amount of texture that's on the paper, and then things like the way the contrast looks on certain papers. Certain papers are contrastier, others are a little more muted, how the whites look, how the shadows look. All those things make such an impact in the overall mood and feel of your photographs, you know? And does it get your artistic vision across, or does it not? You know, does the paper add to the image or detract from it in any way? It's so nice to experiment a little bit so you can really see that in action. Okay, I'm gonna take a risk with this photograph and print it on a 17 by 22 inch piece of paper. I have never printed an iPhone photograph at this size, but I've always wanted to kind of see how it looks. And so we're just gonna give it a whirl because I'm really impressed with how it looks at 12 by 12. The raindrops on there are tack sharp, absolutely tack sharp. So I'm gonna try it on this bamboo paper, which I also really love, also by Hahnemühle. It's kind of dusty on the surface because it's been not used for a really long time, but it's a really great paper. So let's see what we've got. One thing that feels really helpful for making landscape photographs that feel really personal and unique is to really consciously let go of those sort of idealized views that we might have for particular locations. Like oftentimes we know what a place looks like before we go. So we've seen guidebook photos, or we've seen photos on the Instagram hashtag for the place or something like that. And those images can really shape how we see a place. And we might even feel a lot of pressure to take those quote unquote award-winning shots, from the specific locations where it's apparently best. And sometimes they're even in locations, little signs that point people in the direction of, this is the spot where you need to stand to get the award-winning shot. And that can feel so tempting, right? But it's also really easy to get home and look at your photographs and feel disappointed because they look like everybody else's photographs of that same location. Go figure, right? So sometimes those idealized views and those sort of standardized landscape concepts can really weigh us down and feel like an awful lot of baggage when we go out and shoot. And there's this strong feeling that there's a right and a wrong way to do things. I think especially in landscape photography, there are more quote unquote rules than in a lot of other genres. It's kind of burdened by that. And it can be hard to let some of that stuff go because we've been so indoctrinated by it in so many ways. But if we just recognize that our practice is impacted by that, and then we stand there and we take a deep breath and we let it go, then suddenly everything gets quiet. Suddenly you have space to think and to feel your own experience in the landscape. And so you can stand there and feel the sun on your skin and feel the wind on your face. And you can look around and feel into the space, see what's actually there for you. And maybe you make photographs that are quieter and more intimate and not as flashy, but they mean more to you because you were deeply present when you made those photographs. And that's always what I think is most important. So I'm looking for that experience first, and then the photograph second. When I'm most deeply present, that's when I'm really able to make photographs. I'm looking for scenes that make my heart sing. I'm looking for scenes that bring a little bit of a tear to my eye. I'm looking for scenes that break my heart. I'm looking for scenes that make me feel nostalgic. Maybe I stand on a bluff overlooking the ocean and I'm looking at a gorgeous path through the tall grasses, and it just sort of puts my whole life into perspective. Those moments where you stand out in the field and you just stop and you just look and you feel and you sort of get this beautiful sense of the sweep of your entire life, right? And how poignant it is, and how fragile and small you are, and how brief our time here is. Those powerful transformational moments that sometimes happens when you're out in a landscape. It can happen anywhere, but that's what I'm looking for. And in order to access that space, I think it really, really helps to just quiet our minds, slow down, and letting go of all those external shoulds and rules and idealized views and this is the award-winning shot. I think that's the way to do it. It's so good to stop, to pause, to remember to breathe, and to let go of things like, is this going to get a lot of Instagram likes? Is it going to get a lot of Facebook likes? What are the people in my photo group going to think? Maybe they won't like this because it's a little bit weird. And make the photograph anyway because it sings to your soul. Maybe it's not going to get a lot of likes because it's not flashy and it's not overwrought, but it's beautiful in a deeper way, a more meaningful way. And that's so important. And plus, you've had the experience, right? That profound experience that you've just had. That is worth maybe more than any photograph at the end of the day, We're here for such a brief time in the grand scheme of things. So what do we want to do with our time and our experience and our art? Do we want to knock ourselves out to make photographs that we think other people will like? Or do we want to have the richest, most beautiful experience we can in the moment, to feel deeply connected with the land, to feel deeply connected with our art. You know, all of that stuff matters so much more to me. And what's pretty lovely about that is that I think when you're in that space, you wind up making better photographs than you would if you were totally caught up with external views and tastes and expectations and art world opinions and things like that when you were trying to make the photographs. When I work like this, it makes my life feel more meaningful. It makes my art feel more meaningful. Okay, so we've got some pretty neat paper comparisons to do here. So this small print is the sugarcane paper, and I'd say it's a tiny bit warmer than this paper here, which is the bamboo, both part of that natural line. I like how warm and organic they feel. This one, the sugarcane, has kind of like a smaller texture, smaller scale texture than the bamboo. The texture on the bamboo is a little bit bigger, I guess you could say. And then we've got the fine art Barita and the photo rag Barita. And you can tell the real difference in tonality on those two. And it's not just the amount that I sepia toned the image. Those were all the same. So pretty neat to see that in action. I think in terms of the warmth, the photo rag Barita is actually the warmest one. It is even warmer than the sugarcane. So that's kind of neat. Wow, this might be my new favorite paper. It is just exquisite. Love it. Okay guys, kind of a kooky thing just happened. I have been looking at this photograph for about a year since I made it. And I was just texting with my friend about it today, and I sent him one of the clips from this video. So it's like a video clip of a close-up of the photograph. And all of a sudden, I noticed that you can see my hands in the reflection in the window, which, you know, it's a window, so it kind of makes sense that you'd be able to see my reflection in there, but I had never noticed it before. I've been looking at it for a year. And I think what happened is that when I made the really big print, you can just see it better on the really big print, right? So, I mean, it's great. It's a great idea to make a big print so you can see your details better. But I think that's part of it. And then also filming it with the iPhone, photographing it with the iPhone as I'm doing for this video, the phone kind of pumps up the tones a little bit. And so I notice it more in the video than I do in the actual prints. But I still can't unsee it now. I can't unsee it now. And at first I was like, oh, I gotta get that out of there. I don't like that. And then I sat with it a little bit more and I thought, maybe I do kind of like it. Maybe I do kind of like it because it's like a little bit wabi-sabi, right? It's like the hand of the artist in the print. It's a little imperfect. It is also like placing me in the landscape, like I'm a part of the landscape, which is sort of meaningful to me in a way because I grew up in Japan. So it's like that connection. Like it's not abstract. This photograph was made by a human, right? And I'm in the picture too. So kind of like that conceptually. And then I went out for a run to just sort of think about it a little bit more. And I think I'm gonna take it out. I think it just bothers me a little bit. Now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it. You could go back and rewatch earlier parts of this video and you'll probably not be able to unsee it either. So I don't know, see what you think, if you like it better with or without. But I think I'm gonna remove it, and I'm gonna do that in Photoshop with the retouching tools, the clone stamp, and I'm gonna burn parts of it out a little bit. And I feel really lucky that I'm able to do this really pretty easily now with digital tools. Instead of in the traditional darkroom, I would have had to have used the ink and a teeny tiny paintbrush and painstakingly touched it out. And that is a process. So this is a lot easier. So I'm gonna do that. Maybe afterwards, I think I'll probably save both images because afterwards I might decide that I do in fact like this version better. But anyway, yeah, for now, I'm gonna touch it out. I'm gonna make a new print and I'll show you that in a minute. So I opted to not quite remove all of it. Somehow I just wanted a little tiny bit of that in there, but it blends in with the island beautifully. It's more like I know it's there, but nobody else would know it was there. And I kind of like that. It was really easy to retouch out. I just did a little clone stamp and that was it. Called it a day. Now I'm very happy with this, and it's kind of like there's a little Easter egg in there. There's the original. You can see my hands clearly. And then here is the new print. Gone just subtly there, a tiny little bit of presence in the photograph. I love those little waves down there so much. Okay, so I just made a test print of this photograph. This is another image from rural Japan. And this is a well, and then my hand, I held my hand out over the well so that my shadow appears in the water down below. And there's also a little splash right here on the side from throwing a little pebble into the well and making a wish. And so I just wanted to see what this looks like bigger. I'm going over a lot of my Japan prints and thinking about which ones to add to my shop, which ones to make bigger, what kinds of paper I want to print them on, and just getting it all really dialed in. But yeah, I wanted to see how this one would look. First as a test print, and then we're going to do it on some matte paper. One thing that often really inspires me when I photograph landscape is thinking about symbolism or the sacred or magic, you know, like little slices of magic. Where can I find it, or where can I create it in the landscape? And so this one really did it for me. Like, I loved the well just by itself, but then when I held my hand out over the water, that just added a little extra element of magic for me and made the image feel extra special. And now when I look at this photograph, and especially I think when we see it as a big print, we can really see that splash from the pebble on the right side here. When I look at this, I just feel like this image is about making a wish, you know? And this image is maybe about a wish coming true. And so I can have this image up in my home and think about, you know, what wish did I make when I made this photograph? What wish might you want to make as you look at this photograph? You know, it's kind of fun to share in that way too. So yeah, this makes me really happy. But I think what I want to do for my final print, because this is just our test, remember, is I want to make that top edge, the top section here, just a tiny bit lighter in the midtones and in the highlights. I just want to pull a little bit more detail out of that area because it is falling into, I think, just a little bit too much darkness. There's not enough detail there for me. I'd like us to be able to really see the top edge of the well. I am so happy with the way this turned out. I really am liking the tones. The darks are a little richer, which is great, but not so much that I've lost detail. I printed this on Hahnemuhl's Photo Rag Bright White, which is a really nice poppy matte paper. All right, that is it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in my studio today. It was really fun to make a couple prints with you guys and chat through creativity and landscape photography. And yeah, I hope it was fun. Happy photographing. Bye. If you'd like to explore creative ideas like these in more depth,
as they relate to your own photography. There are many different ways to work with me. I have a series of online courses, most of which you can start as soon as you sign up. Some focus on the creative side of the practice, and some are more professional track classes. And I also do one-on-one mentoring with students around the world. That's where we'd meet on Zoom or phone and do a deep dive on your archives, on any challenges you're working through, your current projects and goals, and I'll help you gain clarity and momentum with those things. Mentoring will feel really helpful if you're stalled or unsure about your next steps. With all of my offerings, I bring 20 plus years as a curator, photographer, gallerist, professional portfolio reviewer, educator, and juror to the table. I give you all my best guidance and support. The links are below for all my current online classes and to schedule a mentoring session with me. And if you enjoyed this video, please share. It does help support the work I do. Okay, happy photographing out there. Be well.